Gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? The show starts in 3, 2, 1, go.
What is going on, CaneSport, and good morning to you all. It is Izubee Charles, joined by Stephen Wagner. I would like to thank everyone for starting your morning with Good Morning CaneSport. Stephen, a ton of news today on the site. But first, we're going to start off with some team news. We are just 8 days away from the Miami Hurricanes kickoff in the Swamp as they match up against the Florida Gators. And we'll have feedback from today's practice, so make sure to stay tuned with that later on the site. Stephen, feels like August 31st is right around the corner and it's slowly creeping up. I'm getting excited. I know you're getting excited. I know the fans are super, super excited about that matchup to start off the 2024 campaign. Stephen, what are your thoughts headed into that matchup as Miami faces off against in-state rival Florida Gators?
Man, every single team in America feels like their first game of the season is their biggest game of the year. They really do feel like this is the moment they've been waiting for all year. This is the moment that Miami fans have been waiting for much longer than a year, because not only are you playing a Florida team that is incredibly beatable, that appears from the outside looking in to be in complete disarray. We have no idea if Billy Napier is going to be here next year or just exactly how many games he's going to need to win and how the team is going to look and how his recruiting class is going to have to stack up in order to stay employed. However, on the other side, you also have a Hurricanes team that finally, for the first time in probably 20 years, has put together a championship caliber roster top to bottom. I mean, heck, I would even say that 2017 team was definitely missing a couple of things. And for a while, they were scraping by on some lucky wins. They did have an awesome defense, but there was a lot of luck involved in that season, and it ultimately ended up getting exposed those last 3 games of the year. But this Miami team, we've heard the hype, and now it's time to see the actual product on the field. This is year 3 for Mario. That means these are his guys now. He's got his recruiting classes. He went out and he got the prospects that he thinks he needed to win. He's been supported through and through with a ton of recruiting resources. The university has made a very, very large investment in Cristobal and the program. And now's the time to see if it all paid off. This is going to be the moment. Matt said it the other day on the show. This one game is going to be a referendum on Mario Cristobal and see, is this thing working? Because honestly, I mean, man, if you're a Hurricane fan and you lose this game, you're thinking to yourself, well, at that rate, what is it going to take to get to the point where we can win these kinds of games? But on the other hand, if Miami rolls into the Swamp and wins, heck, even if they just win by a point, there will be elation and Mario's seat suddenly gets much, much cooler. But you're also going to be dealing you're also going to have fans that are saying, man, it worked. The investment that we made in Cristobal worked. We knew it was going to be a slow build, but we finally got there. And man, I cannot wait for August 31st.
Yeah, no, super, super excited. There's a ton of storylines leading up to this game. Like you mentioned, it would really, really suck to lose this game for either side. Coach Billy Napier, Coach Mario Cristobal, obviously their first 2 years at the top of these two schools haven't been the best, but this is their opportunity to come away with that statement marquee win against your in-state rival that you haven't played in a few years. Matt also did a great story about some bold predictions that he has for the matchup, so make sure to tune in with that. Steven, I want to ask you, what's one bold prediction or something that might surprise people that you think might happen in this matchup?
That's a great question. Honestly, I feel like a bold prediction that I would have would probably be in favor of the Gators. Not necessarily that the Gators are going to win, but I think Graham Mertz is going to play really, really well in this game. Okay, my bold prediction, Graham Mertz is going to throw for 300 yards against a Miami secondary that is good, okay, but not that deep, pretty young collectively as a unit. and is going to be going into an incredibly challenging environment against a team that we saw last year can throw the ball effectively. Even with shaky offensive line play, Graham Mertz was a very effective passing quarterback. I mean, he completed something like 70% of his passes, threw for 3,000 plus yards. TD to INT ratio was way the heck up. I mean, he really is a lot better than a lot of people think, just because whenever you think Graham Mertz, you think Wisconsin Graham Mertz. But Florida Graham Mertz has been a lot different. And I'm thinking that Florida coordinators who have had entire off seasons to prepare and game plan for this game, I think they're going to come out attacking. I think they're going to be very aggressive. I think they're going to take shots early and often. And I think that they're going to be crafty and creative enough that at some point someone's going to sneak open. I definitely think the Gators are going to score at least 3 touchdowns. I think they'll get at least 24 points in this game. And I do think Miami's going to get a couple stops in the red zone, but I do think that Graham Mertz is going to throw for 300. I really honestly do believe that, only because this is the first game of the season and Florida's coordinators have had the entire year to come up with their craftiest, most creative game plan for your lay it all on the line game that might very well save your job.
Yeah, no, I had a similar bold prediction, but I'm not bold enough to, say Graham Mertz is going to throw for 300 yards. I do think he's going to have a good game. I do think he is much, much better than a lot of people, give him credit for. Like you said, 72.9, passing percentage, best in the SEC, 20-3 interception ratio, got a bit banged up at the end of the season. He's fully healthy now. I put my prediction. I said Miami will win 38-21. I think it's going to be around there. I do think Miami comes out firing on all cylinders. You have so much hype in the offseason. You bring in Cam Ward, you bring in Damian Martinez, you bring in Sam Brown, you bring in those guys along the defensive line, the Tyler Barons of the world, Elijah Alstons, Marley Cook, CJ Clark, Ruben Bain is back, Akeem Mesidor is back. I feel like that front seven for Miami is going to be very, very dangerous in that matchup, and I feel like they're going to dictate that matchup for the Canes as well. Like you did mention, the secondary is a little bit unproven, but I do have a lot of faith in Daryl Porter and Jadice Richard on the other side, as well as Damari Brown in the slot. I absolutely love him as a nickel. I think he has the physical capability to handle that position, make a play in the box, as well as cover, guys down the field. So I'm very, very, very excited for this matchup. I can't wait. I'm counting down the days till we're up in Gainesville and the Swamp watching that game. We're going to have you guys covered throughout next week leading up to the matchup, so stay tuned with that. Until then, check out Matt's 5 bold predictions. I know there's some great stuff in there. I know you guys love when Matt, has his crazy takes, so check that out. Rolling on, we have a Inside the Lines with Miami wide receiver coach Kevin Beard, who gives his thoughts on that position group, who I think is going to be one of the best on the team. You bring back guys like Xavier Strepo, Jacoby George, like I mentioned, add Sam Brown in the mix as well. Isaiah Horton is emerging in camp. Cam Ward has said a lot of good things about Isaiah Horton, thinks he has the potential to be a breakout player for the Canes this year. I absolutely love that wide receiver unit. A little bit of JoJo Trader as well. We saw him flash in the spring. Steven, what are your thoughts on that wide receiver unit that Kevin Beard has built over the last 2 years?
Yeah. Kevin Beard, I think, deserves a lot more credit than he gets as a recruiter. I mean, in his first recruiting cycle as Miami's receivers coach, he brought in 3 4-star wideouts for the first time in one single class since I think it was either 2008 or 2009. It was one of Randy Shannon's teams. That's how long it had been since Miami got 3 4-star top 300 wideouts collectively in one class. Now, I think kind of a good problem that you have is you have legitimate depth at receiver now, especially with the addition of Sam Brown. You finally have enough options at the top that you shouldn't be put in a position where you're reliant on freshmen. You should be able to allow these guys to kind of develop quietly behind the scenes. And I know that I said that I thought JoJo Trader was going to be a big impact guy, a really high impact guy whenever he first came to campus. And I still believe he is talented enough to contribute on the field, but it's a good problem to have if you don't have to rely on freshmen early in their careers. If you have, say, a Sam Brown, a guy who, I mean, I watched him last season when he was at Houston. He really is just an older JoJo Trader. He looks like JoJo Trader who's played, I don't know, 36 career games. He looks like a JoJo Trader who's, racked up a few thousand receiving yards in his career. Very similar skill set. Sam Brown's a little bit of a stockier build. I still think, JoJo's I do think he would probably benefit from, maybe getting a little bit bigger, just because, I think he was somewhere in like the 160 something pound range whenever he was at Chaminade Madonna last year. And obviously, whenever you're that weight and you're getting popped at the college level, you're going to be a lot more prone to injury. But Miami finally has a receiver group that they don't have to rush. And I think the biggest thing this year is just going to be making sure that your top three guys actually are going to have reliable and consistent production. Not to mention, just even outside of receivers, if you're able to bring a guy like Riley Williams along at tight end, you're maybe able to get a little bit of support in production from Elijah Lofton, just in different various roles. Now this can take your offense to an entirely new level. So, I digress, but yeah, what Kevin Beard is doing right now with the receiver room, it's definitely going to have a very, very, very positive effect on the rest of the team.
Yeah, very, very excited to see those guys kick off the year in the swamp. You got Cam Ward slinging the rock out there. And then, obviously last year, Florida secondary did struggle a little bit. We saw in that Utah game, the Utes were throwing bombs down the field like they were at war, just, airing out the Gators secondary. I will have to say they were a bit young this year, and they bring back some starters, but I do think Cam Ward and those Miami receivers will definitely be able to test that secondary. I'm looking forward to seeing that, come August 31st. Like I said, a ton of coverage on that game leading up to that big-time matchup to open the 2024 season. Make sure to stay tuned on that. Now we're going to jump into recruiting. Steven, we love to talk recruiting. That is our thing. And what better way to kick off the South Florida season than having Miami's 2025 quarterback Luke Nichols down in South Florida. He will start off the year later today at St. Thomas Aquinas as a matchup against American Heritage. Steven, you've been all over Luke Nichols' debut for his senior year down here. Just what are your thoughts on, Luke Nichols coming down and kind of showcasing his talents in South Florida while he'll be playing his college football after?
Yeah, well, he's going to be looking for a little bit of redemption after last year. He also came to South Florida, played over at Western High School out in Davie, and did not play very well at all. Did not look good. Was nothing like the player who we saw work out earlier that summer, who landed a committable offer from Miami and whose commitment Shannon Dawson was very, very, very quick to take and lock in and say, yeah, I found my dude in the 25 class. Because whenever we first got to see him actually play live with pads on, I think the first thing a lot of us thought was, man, I think Shannon Dawson completely missed in this evaluation. Well, turned out that really was one fluke game, because the rest of the season goes on. He loses one game. He ends up winning the Georgia 6A or 7A, whatever classification they are. He ends up winning that state title. He skyrockets in the recruiting rankings as a result. He shoots all the way up to the 150s. Now he's a borderline top 100 prospect. Over the summer, he was an Elite 11 quarterback. He's the star 7-on-7 gunslinger for a Cam Newton 7-on-7 team. This kid has passed every single test that he's had since that game that we saw him last year. But this year, it doesn't look like weather should be a factor. It doesn't look like he should be affected by poor field conditions. We've both been to St. Thomas many times. They have very good facilities. The field is going to be in good shape. It looks like everything should be in place to, play in an ESPN national game. But this is also a smaller version of the stage that he's going to be on at Miami. This is going to be a litmus test in a couple of ways. How far along is Luke Nichols, and is he the kind of guy that Miami fans can get stoked about whenever he steps into the spotlight and you say, all right, man, here's the ball. go lead us to victory. Maybe not necessarily, put everything on your shoulders and win the game by yourself, but can you go back there and can you command a game from under center? Can you command a game even whenever you're not throwing it on every single down? And there are a lot of us who are really, really excited to see it. And I think if you're a Miami fan, there is no way that you should not be in front of a TV tomorrow night at 7:00 on ESPN watching Luke Nickel, your future quarterback and a 4-star prospect, playing on a national stage in Miami for the first time in his life.
And I'm super, super excited to see Luke Nickel later on today. I feel like last year was a bit of a, like you mentioned, a fluke. I feel like the conditions were quarterback's worst nightmares. It's rainy, fields.
Everything that could go wrong did go wrong. It really was. It really was. What do you call it? Murphy's Law. It really was. Everything that could go wrong did go wrong. There wasn't anything that went right in that game. They had one good opening drive, and then after that, everything just, players were getting banged up. The ball was so stuck in mud that the center was having a hard time snapping it. Nickel was getting the ball with chunks of mud and grass still on it. His blue chip receivers committed to who knows where are dropping balls left and right. Running backs can't hold on to the football, and they played into Western's chaos. It was anything that could go wrong did go wrong. It was any quarterback's worst nightmare.
In a few hours, we'll see if Luke Nickel can redeem himself in front of that South Florida crowd. Won't be an easy task. They'll be going up against American Heritage, obviously a South Florida powerhouse that features University of Miami 2026 commit Malachi Tune, who I'm also excited to watch later today. He'll also be battling against a guy he'll see for the next few years as well, 2025 safety Zay Thomas, who's committed to Florida State. So we'll see a little bit of a preview of the future Miami-Florida State battles tonight at St. Thomas Aquinas. If you are Free Canes fans, make sure to head over there to watch your future quarterback to take on American Heritage, which I think will be a very, very good matchup. Tomorrow, Saturday, there's also a handful of great games that feature a ton of Miami commits and targets, starting off with St. Thomas Aquinas versus Bishop Gorman. A huge matchup. Bishop Gorman, one of the best teams out on the West Coast, making their way out to South Florida. Steven, you had an update on SJ Alfai-Tui. Is he playing or is he not? What's kind of his status right now leading up to the game tomorrow?
I'm not certain that he will be playing. In fact, it's probably looking like he's not going to play. I would not expect to see him on the field. But I am really excited to get a chance to see some of the guys over on the STA side, mainly Justice Fitzpatrick and Zayden Gamble, the 26 and 27 safety and corner that they have respectively. I'm really stoked to see those two dudes, but man, I am really sad that I'm not going to be able to watch Alfai-Tui play in person, because Miami was incredibly high on him. They loved his evaluation. They think he is both one of the highest floor and highest ceiling players in the class. They think they have their center of the future. You thought Alex Mirabal loved Connor Liu as his center. Man, they love SJ Alfai-Tui. Cristobal's, he's been recruiting Polynesian players for a while, and he's done a very good job recruiting Polynesian players for a while. I do think that it seems like Miami staff really does resonate with SJ. I think that the Hurricanes are going to be very solid with him. I don't think he's going anywhere either. He's pretty much shut down. There's still a handful of programs that are trying to flip him. Apparently Colorado has been in communication with him. But I do not think he's going anywhere. That guy's going to be a Hurricane on signing day.
Yeah, unfortunately, we won't be able to watch him play tomorrow, but we'll definitely have an update with SJ coming out of this upcoming weekend. Moving on to the next game, we have Shamadad Madonna going against St. John Bosco, where we will see two Miami commits hit the field with Chris Ewald and Dante Simpson looking to slow down the St. John Bosco, who is one of the best teams in not only California, but the country as well. A ton of talent on that side. They got guys like Madden Williams, Daniel Odom, and a few more guys, Dutch Horse, defensive lineman that picked up that offer from Miami, committed to Oregon, but a prospect I think the Canes are going to continue to pursue. Ton of talent on that field. Derek Cooper as well in the 2026 class for Chaminade, as well as Jabari Brady. Steven, just what are your thoughts on that matchup and, Chaminade Madonna going up against a powerhouse in St. John Bosco?
Yeah, we definitely got a little bit of an East Coast West Coast theme going on here, but I'm really, really excited to see Chaminade get another massive test very early in the year. That's one thing that I tip my hat to those guys over there for. They have not shied away from massive contests on major platforms. Last year, they ended up playing American Heritage. They ended up playing American Heritage, Miami Central, and who'd they play in the opener? That academy out of St. Francis. They played St. Francis. They played 2 games on national television against elite powerhouses. Were able to squeak out wins in both. Looked very, very good in both of them. And then they also played a really good American Heritage team last year that granted was young, but was still very, very, very talented. My hat's off to them for once again being more than willing and ready to play a team that kind of has, a little bit of a national reputation. One of those powerhouses that puts out quarterbacks like DJ Uiagalelei, who obviously we know, there's a great amount of debate over, how good is he actually? But in high school, he was the number 12 prospect in the country and the number 2 quarterback in the nation. They also produced Josh Rosen, who out of high school, was a 5-star prospect. I'm pretty sure he was top 25, and he was he was either the number 1 quarterback in the country or the number 2 quarterback in the country. So they're going up against a program that has very legitimate talent, and we're going to get a chance to see a lot of potential future Hurricanes in that game.
Yeah, over the next 48 hours, there will be a lot of talent down in South Florida competing. And before we wrap up this morning's show, Steven, I want to get your predictions on these 3 games, starting off with tonight's matchup, Milton versus American Heritage. Who you got, and I'll go after you.
I've got Milton in a very close game, 31-28.
I've also got Milton. I think it's going to be around 21-14. I just think that Luke Nickel offense is going to overpower American Heritage. No shade to my South Florida guys, but I do think Milton's going to come out on top with this one. Moving on, St. Thomas Aquinas versus Bishop Gorman. Who you got and why?
I've got Bishop Gorman. I think Bishop Gorman's going to win that game a little bit more convincingly. I've got them winning 28-14. No disrespect to STA, but Bishop Gorman's their offensive identity is that offensive line. There's a strong argument that they might have the best high school offensive line in the country. Even with LFA Thule out, it's still definitely one of the best. And I think that Bishop's just going to dominate the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, I have to agree with you on that. I'm going Bishop Gorman 21-10. I think up front, the trenches for Bishop Gorman is just going to overmatch St. Thomas Aquinas. Like I said, again, no shade against the South Florida team, but I do think Bishop Gorman right now is in a better position. A very 2025 heavy program right now. St. Thomas Aquinas is a bit younger, leaning on the 2026, 2027 guys. So with that being said, I'm going with Gorman 21-10. Last matchup tomorrow evening, we got Chaminade Madonna versus St. John Bosco. Wags, who you got?
Yeah, I've got Chaminade squeaking out that one, 27-21. I think someone's going to miss an extra point, or an extra point's going to get blocked, or something funny is going to happen on one of them. But I do think that St. John Bosco is a very, very, very well-coached team. They're very disciplined. They have talent everywhere. But I also think that Chaminade is just to the point where they are bringing in prospects at such a frequency, and they are loading their field. They are loading that field with so much talent that I do think they're going to pull out a win.
So this is the only one I'm going to be disagreeing with you. Unfortunately, I think South Florida might get swept over the next 2 days. I just think St. John Bosco is just a powerhouse program. My biggest thing for Chaminade right now is that question mark at quarterback. They're running a 2-man system last week. So, not really certain who's going to be that gunslinger for Chaminade, but I do think this is a close one. I think it's 21-14 or 28-21, a one-score game, but Bosco comes out on top with that. Hopefully I'm wrong in one of these games. Hopefully South Florida team can come out and do their thing and upset one of these powerhouses. But right now I think South Florida kind of may get swept in this weekend's matchups. But nonetheless, going to be great matchups with a ton of Miami Hurricanes targets and commits. Stay tuned with CaneSport throughout the weekend. We'll have you covered with great news on all these guys and updates where things stand with them. That's going to wrap up the show for us this morning. For Stephen Wagner, I'm Izubee Charles. Thank you all for watching.